Nebraska. We put that on hold, and in conjunction with the ambassador, AFRICOM, we decided not to pursue that because it wouldn't have been a good place for that particular group to be, so we put a halt to that. The issue on the Anglophone piece, I won't go into detail on that. I think the article plus the video this morning did a very good job of explaining the history of how it got to the point where we are today. In October of 2017, when it came time to a head, the Anglophone states said we want to actually form our own state, the Ambazonia state. There have been issues there with atrocities, issues with allegations of law of war issues, and this is something that brings all this to a head. Over the last several months or so, the State Department has put on hold several security force assistance programs. Right before the election in October, I, with the ambassador, went and paid a visit with President Biya, and we had a very direct conversation with him with regards to investigation of these atrocities, transparency of these atrocities, and appropriate battlefield behavior. Since that time, the State Department has made a decision not to allocate significant money, but at the same time, they've released some money that's been on hold to things like Scan Eagle and Cessna aircraft that assist in the Boko Haram fight in the north. We still have programs that we continue with them, all kind of small engagements as well as exercises. We did have, we talked about the state partnership program with Nebraska. We put that on hold, and in conjunction with the ambassador, AFRICOM, we decided not to pursue that because it wouldn't have been a good place for that particular group to be, so we put a halt to that. So the bottom line is right now in Cameroon, they have been a good partner with us counterterrorism-wise, but you can't neglect the fact that they have there are alleged atrocities and what's going on there. And so we continue to take our cues from the State Department and from the ambassador, and our level of engagement will continue, but not get out ahead of what the State Department would say is if we have to take other actions. We were very emphatic with President Biya that the behavior of his troops, the lack of transparency, could have a significant impact on our ability to work with them.
Great.
Good afternoon. It's 1:22 p.m. here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. And this is Comrade Fonton Daniel, continue to speak on the issues of the Southern Cameroon massacre and atrocity that is being perpetrated by the neighboring country, La Republic du Cameroon. That is the U.S. Secretary of State, and that is that I just which I placed. And that was the four-star U.S. general, the African commander, speaking clearly and openly on the question of the massacre of genocide that is ongoing in Southern Cameroon. And before I proceed, four-star general, that's homes burned by La Republic military in their military expedition in Southern Cameroon. But before I come to that burnt, let's take a moment and look on the U.S. Secretary of State. This is just recently, and why the British Secretary for African Affairs just left La Republique du Cameroon with the golden statue. That just happened after the British left with the golden statues, and that is what happened post Southern Cameroon. For those who are not familiar with, But I want to make it clear, government officials, so that it's not the United States fault, but I shall come under this, what the United States must do. But in order, although I am not dictating responsibility to do something about it, but while they are dealing with that, let me bring the British government officials, because they are the one that orchestrated this nightmare that the people of Southern Cameroon are facing with this relationship, that there is no marriage certificate. Stay tuned, don't go away.
The issue on the Anglophone piece, I won't go into detail on that. History of how in October 2017, when it came kind of to a head,
Here again, this is Comrade Fundamben speaking live here from the great state of Texas here in the United States. I want to thank my fellow viewers in and around the world. This is the top show of Fundam Daniel, and I am deeply thank those citizens of Southern Cameroon in Ambazonia that are struggling to overcome the disaster that we have been placed by the British government. That is the symbolic effect that is happening in Southern Cameroon because of the wrong and poor judgment of the British assumption that after living with them for a lengthy period of time, they believe that we ought to live under the umbrella of a foreign nation, La République du Cameroon. Despite the clear fact that we have a government, during the administration, remember, resolution, United back again, because for those who are not familiar, but let me make some statements so that people understand what I am talking about. Post-World War II, a United Nations was formed. The purpose of the United Nations was to maintain peace and security. So Southern Cameroon was one of the German territories under the British administrative authority. In doing so, the United Nations Resolution 1514 XV states that the territory that were under the Allied member nation be given their rightful independence. That is what article or resolution 1514 XV of the United Nations. So the British deprived the people of Southern Cameroon. There were three questions that should have been on the table. One, do you opt as a sovereign nation? One, do you opt as loss of revenue more than the French-speaking Cameroon? Southern Cameroon has excess surplus more than the northern part that joined the last end of it. And then I'm going to talk about it. In recent years, the area around Victoria, when you talk about Victoria, in referring to what is now called Limbe are part of a systematic uprooting the question of Southern Cameroon identity. Any images that show the people of Southern Cameroon are being systematically uprooted. So Limbe is Victoria. That is the name of Southern Cameroon economic capital, just like equivalent like Douala. So Victoria is like an economic capital of Southern Cameroon, just as Douala is an economic capital of La République du Cameroon. So let me go back again. In recent years, the area around Victoria has developed to be a commercial center of the young and rapid developing territory of the Southern Cameroon. That was the Prime Minister. It's part of Tico, daily with ships and offloading cargo from the country's economic and social development and carrying away the rich and ever-growing natural resources from the adjoining plantations and forests, the form of bananas, rubbers, cocoa, palm produce, and timber. Much of this wealth revenue upon which this new territory depends is derived from the center in Victoria Division and the Cameroon Development Corporation estate, in which growing a wide variety of crops. The reader will in any case find more about this and other interesting subjects in this book. I sincerely hope this little volume, with the comprehensive and up-to-date information it gives of Victoria Division and the early territory, but for all over the Federation of Nigeria, to which we are daily becoming more intricately connected, and help to clear a social barrier that has separated us from the outside world for so many years. The office of the Premier, Biya, Southern Cameroon, 25th August 1958. That was the letter written, that was the last part of the letter written by the Prime Minister and Head of Government of Southern Cameroon. Where do we go wrong? Where did we go wrong with the British government? Of course, this is what the people of Southern Cameroon, you saw the slaughtering of our citizens by the military regime of La République du Cameroon because of the mineral that I just short-listed are the material that brought revenue to the people of Southern Cameroon. That La République du Cameroon did not in every second could compete with the economic status of the people of Southern Cameroon. And yet, we find ourselves in this miserable condition with La République du Cameroon. Even the roads are impassable. Even in nature, we were more economically viable than La République du Cameroon. And yet, we find ourselves in a misery living on crumbs because we were because of the compromise of the British government towards the people of Southern Cameroon. And yet it didn't occur to them that they need to stand up and say, no. Fellow brothers, am I speaking to you guys? Of course I am. Does my message make sense if you are listening? So, the pain and the suffering that the British government imposed upon our people is never will resolve even in the 100 years to come. But the pain will linger around as we began to understand what the British did. We will never in any circumstances feel and say we got it. I will expect them to come up and say, no, we did wrong and we apologize and we are sorry. And so therefore, it is their obligation and so we recognize and refuse to give them. That is our brothers and sisters. They have just taken up rubber gun, arms, just to defend themselves from the brutal regime of La République du Cameroon, who has not experienced disgusting behavior of La République towards the citizens of Southern Cameroon. Of course, they pretend to show now that, and they make sure that every person of prime interest that can oppose La République are being given their own special position. And that is why the British, you can see from the British Undersecretary for African Affairs, will you, UK, accept those gifts from La République and the painful suffering of our people? Well, that painful suffering will haunt those individuals. I am not cursing, but I feel the pain as my people are going through from the injustice that were imposed upon them by the British government. If British government were absolutely right, why did they abandon European Union? If they cannot live with a single home with European Union, even though they had a relationship of being with European Union, guess what? That did not go with the European Union. The British pound was being utilized Despite that, the rest of other nations forgo their currency. So if Britain cannot forgo its pound and believe they can live together with the European Union, they expect the people of Southern Cameroon to live happily and in harmony with the foreign government of La Republique du Cameroon, despite the fact that they have their own government that are able. Why the U.S. Secretary of